I know that we have to do stuff in the day that we don't want to do. I know that we're going to have hard days, weeks, months, years. I get it. Things are going to be thrown at us, but we can control our feelings. We can control how we go into the day, and we can control some things that happen in the day to actually help us live a life that we want.
Welcome to the Core Happiness Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Banks, a mindset and positive psychology coach. On this podcast, we discuss all things related to creating happiness from within. So let's do it. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited for you all to hear today's conversation. Get ready to bid farewell to multitasking madness and embrace a life filled with meaningful moments. Today, we are talking with Tarra Stubbins, also known as the ultimate success catalyst and lifestyle guru. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Tara's unique journey includes being a certified lifestyle manager, accountability and time management coach, and even a celebrity concierge where she managed schedules of rock legends like the Rolling Stones, Lady Gaga, Kiss, and so many more. So it goes without saying, Tara's firsthand knowledge is a treasure trove of insights, and today we get to uncover the secrets behind her practical time management strategies. Get comfortable. This one is packed full of so many wonderful insights and goodies. Without further ado, Tarra, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so nice to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I am so excited about our conversation today, and there's so much I want to talk to you about that I actually even struggle with where to start because I'm excited about it all. So I'm just going to default to telling us a little bit about yourself and what got you into becoming a coach.
So, a little bit about my kind of current situation is I am a coach and a founder of a company called Take It Easy. And we are a team of fractional executive assistants with the mission really to just help companies scale and help founders just get out of their own way. And then how I kind of came into that is I have a little bit of an interesting background. I used to be a personal assistant for some really big rock and roll bands, really big musicians and entertainers, such as Big Jagger from the Rolling Stones, Lady Gaga, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I've also worked with some business gurus as well, such as Richard Branson and Elon Musk. So I've kind of dipped my toes into both the entertainment world and the business world, which is really cool. But I have this one story of, so I toured with the bands for a good 10 years and I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I've always said that I believe that I've been put on this earth to help others succeed. I love being kind of the backbone of everyone else's goals and successes. But I had this kind of one moment where one of the rock stars, I can't name names at this point in time, but one of his crazy requests was that every time he traveled, which was pretty much every day out on the road, we were in a new city. And I was setting up his hotel room, and his toothbrush came out of the suitcase. He wanted his toothbrush to be sanitized in the hotel dishwasher. Crazy request. I know people ask me all the time, one, did I actually do it? And I did it every single day. I guess it, talks to my integrity. But people also ask, like, why didn't he just throw out the toothbrush and get a new one? He's a, bazillionaire. And I'm like, I don't know. I learned not to ask why to rock stars a long time ago.
Yeah.
They do crazy stuff. You just don't want to know why. So I just rolled with it. But there was this one time we were in a very new hotel. So they didn't know I was coming. Like a lot of times, hotels would know that because we'd stayed there before that this request was, coming at them. And they were like, oh, yeah, here comes this crazy lady with the toothbrush again. But sometimes it was new hotels and I had to surprise them with the request. So this one time we were actually in Shanghai and it was a brand new hotel, very, very expensive hotel, top of the line. And I was there in the back of the kitchen. They were probably wondering how I even got in there in the first place. And I was trying to communicate to them that I had to put this toothbrush in the dishwasher. I didn't speak their language. They didn't speak English at all. It was the most awkward conversation I think I've ever had in my entire life. They were looking at me like I had 3 heads. And I just remember standing there with this toothbrush in hand, thinking, there's got to be more to life than this. And so I decided that I was going to finish off the tour and come off the road. And I just had the dream and the desire to help more than one crazy rock star at a time. I had no idea what I was going to do or how I was going to do it. I just thought, I think I can put my skills to more use than toothbrushes and dishwashers. And I also knew that I had this really unique background and experience of being embedded into the lives of these really, really successful people. And I've always been so interested and curious about why them? Like, why is Mick Jagger famous and not me? Why is he up on the stage and not somebody else? How did he create his success? How does he maintain his success? And because I was so fascinated in that, I was always like a sponge to these really successful people. So I really wanted to be able to take those lessons and everything that I'd learned, supporting these people and really be able to just help the common folk achieve their goals. And, it's a lot more interesting to me helping a new business owner than a crazy rock star.
I will speak on behalf of most common folks, I think, when I say I'm so glad that you did. And I know you have a wealth of experience, but in terms of having to be essentially a problem solver and an on the fly strategist, if you will, I know that you probably came up with a lot of tips and techniques, but I'm just curious when you're managing the schedules of celebrities compared to executives, are there differences in managing those types of schedules, or are they essentially the same? Like at the end of the day, are they all common folks?
I believe at the end of the day, we're all common folk. Like we all have a goal that we want, no matter if you are, a rock star up on stage, or if you are a rock star business owner, or if you are a rock star single parent. We all have a goal at the end of the day that we want to achieve. And I believe that our time should be focused on something that helps us achieve that goal. And in my mind, that's all about time management. So when I'm managing the calendars and the tour schedules and where they need to go and things like that, it's all about their end goal. So, making sure that what they are doing on a day to day basis, on an hour by hour basis, is moving the needle towards that end goal. Same with executives when you're managing calendars, when you are communicating with other people who want to get into their time and into their calendars. Can these people help achieve that goal? I guess the only difference between kind of people at the top of their game and people who are just starting out is obviously the people at the top of the game have a little more flexibility to say no to things and to, delegate out their problems or things that they just don't want to do or don't have time to do. And so I get asked that a lot. Like, I'm not a millionaire, billionaire like Richard Branson or Mick Jagger. So, how can I manage my time like them? And it really, really is all about focusing. So, if you can just focus, even just 1 hour a day or 15 minutes a day on that end goal, you are pushing towards that finish, and then you get into the luxury of being able to accommodate more and focus more on your end goals and where you're going. So everyone has to start out somewhere. They did. And it's just kind of all about that focus on how you're spending your time.
I love that because a topic that we talk about a lot on this podcast is goal setting and just being intentional. I know a lot of times when I talk about goal setting, people think of it as this big, huge, mundane thing. Like it's got to be this really lofty goal that's going to take a long time to get there. And it's not always the case. Like a goal could simply be, I want to make time that I'm prioritizing my family today. Like it doesn't have to be these huge, lofty goals. So I'm wondering, can you give an example of scheduling around a goal?
Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of to-do lists with because I know a lot of people talk about make sure you do your top three things either in the morning or at least throughout the day, or, make sure you write them down. And I totally believe in that. But your top three things shouldn't be, make my bed, do my laundry, renew my passport.
Right.
Like, of course, those are very important things to do. Maybe not make the bed, that can be controversial, but, those are very important things that have to get done. I understand, but not necessarily towards your goal. And again, your goal doesn't have to be business related. It can be to spend more time with your family. It can be the best volunteer, at your church group, whatever it is, but making sure that your priorities in the day, at least one of them, is pointing to the direction of achieving that goal. So when the people that I'm working with, I always like to make sure that I myself understand their goal so I can then help them prioritize again their time in their calendar. So I think the first step obviously is to make sure that we have a measurable goal. I'm sure we've heard it a million times before. So not I want to be rich, but I want to make $1 million profit by the end of 2024. Great. That's something that we can work with. And then let's break it down into quarters, into months, into weeks, and into days. And it's like, okay, so now I understand your goal and I understand that you want to make just say $1,000 a day. Okay. So how many people do we have to talk to get the leads in your calendar to make that $1,000? How many products do you have to sell? How many coaching sessions do you have to be on? Whatever it is. And then, okay, how are we going to get those in the calendar? Is it going to be networking events? And then we look at the calendar and how you're spending your time and really make sure, again, that it's pushing towards that goal. And maybe you're struggling to find time. So you're like, okay, I want to make this $1 million. I need to make the $1,000 a day. I know it's more, but just for argument's sake, I want to make, whatever it is a day, but I don't have time to go and talk to this many people and go to this many networking events and to do all these things. So that's fine. You can still have, $1 million as your goal, but maybe it's not by the end of 2024. Maybe you need to push it out a little bit more to 2025 or 2026 just to make it reasonable for you to achieve it. Doesn't have to be easy. It doesn't have to be like, I want to make $4 by the end of the year. Like, obviously, stretch goals are good and will allow us to push ourselves to actually achieve them. We don't want it to be too easy. But sometimes if it's too hard, then we're just not going to do it anyway. All the internal talks and blockers inside are going to stop us. So you kind of want to find the happy medium. And so I help my clients be able to figure out the happy medium of like a stretch goal versus too much of a stretch goal versus too easy of a goal. And then I feel like your calendar kind of in your schedule just speaks for itself because you know what you need to do on a day-to-day basis to achieve it. And of course, we're all adults. We all have to eat and shower and do laundry. And I'm sure most of us can't pay for other people to do that for us. So, you kind of work that into your day as well, just again, making sure that you are pushing towards that one goal at a time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I know a lot of times we struggle with prioritization and we feel like we don't have a lot of time because everything feels like a priority. But if it's actually geared towards a goal, then that helps with the prioritization. It essentially prioritizes itself. Like, does it align with this particular goal during this particular time or not? So that makes a lot of sense. And I know that you and your coaching, you're also a lifestyle guru because another thing you talked about with not having enough time is you mentioned like the balance. And one thing that comes up a lot with everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, like however you define work is work-life balance, right? Like that is just a common challenge that it seems like everybody is trying to crack. And so I'm wondering when you are approaching integrating like lifestyle management into balance and goals, what is your approach to goal setting in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that I get asked all the time. And it all comes back to the individual. So I think a lot of us will like read a book of, a famous CEO or entrepreneur and hear that they get up at 4 a.m. and they work out and then they eat this like very specific breakfast and then they go in a sauna and then like do all these things. And then another CEO will wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a 3 hour bike ride. And then we get motivated to copy them like, oh, I want to make $10 million in 1 year like that person. I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and follow this exactly. But that doesn't work. And their goals are probably not the same as your goals, right now. So, one, make sure that you're not copying what everybody says is a work life balance. And you're like, okay, well, work life balance is I only work 9 to 5. That might be one person's work life balance, but maybe your work life balance is working all the time and, something that you're really passionate about. Maybe that's a hobby for you. A lot of people say that's bad, but why is that bad if you enjoy it and you really like doing it? Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you only want to work half days. So determining what your work life balance is number one, and not trying to copy everyone else's routines and what they determine to be work life balance. I know we hear a lot about the 4-day work week and the
Yeah.
4-hour work days and things like that, which is great to strive for if that's something that you want to strive for. I also think that a lot of people forget that these people that are writing these books and are in these situations, they're in them now. They weren't necessarily in them then. And I've witnessed through my career being surrounded by really successful people is that the only way that really successful people become a huge success is that they're the ones with the most self-discipline to push past the hard times, to push past the boring times, to create their own motivation. And then they can kind of relish in what they've been able to achieve. But a lot of us want to go from like opening up our business this week to I need a full work life balance the next week or the next month. So there are hard times that we have to push through if that's the level of success you want to achieve. I always say, like, successful people just do the thing. They're the ones who will push past that really hard point in like building a business or achieving their goals.
Yeah, you talk about the fact that it's really up to each individual. I think we do that too often. I am very guilty of that. I am the one who's like, oh, let me read like the 5 a.m. club and I'm going to try to do everything that they do. But I'm also not a morning person. So then sometimes I find like, why am I trying to force myself into a certain, like maybe that doesn't work for me. But I like that you say that it really does depend on each individual. And we have to really define what work-life balance means to us and then strive for whatever that balance is. Something that you talk about is rock star status and productivity. And I'm wondering if you can share with us the elements in maintaining such high levels of productivity.
I find it really interesting that the productivity industry right now is worth $8.5 billion
Oh,
or
yeah.
more,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's a lot of people like us telling people to be productive, how to be productive, apps that control your productivity and monitor and things. But if you think about it, there's nothing yet that's going to do the entire task for you. It can get you to a point, but there's nothing that's going to do 100% of it. So it's all about like pushing past the pain to then create kind of your work life balance, if you will, whatever it is in your head that means work life balance
Yeah.
for, the high levels. But I always think of it as athletes. So when you want to get to the top of your game, you have to be at the highest of your game for productivity and self-discipline. It's really what it all comes down to. But again, if you are okay just achieving like, smaller levels of goals and living like a happy, satisfied life, then you don't necessarily have to push yourself to that massive status. Again, it's all what comes down to you. But it's actually interesting. So when I was talking about rock star status, when I was really, really little, I had a t-shirt that said, "Remember me, I'm going to be a star." And I wore that shirt everywhere to the point where it disintegrated. I really wish I still had it
Oh,
today.
love it.
I know, but in my like very, very young, undeveloped brain, I always thought that being a star was being a rock star. So singing, dancing, being up on the massive stage, playing an instrument. And the problem with me is that I have very little musical talent. So I thought in my very, again, like young mind, well, I'm never going to make anything of myself. I can't be a rock star. So there goes that dream. I might as well just like suck at life and move on. I was like literally like 6 or 7 years old. But for some reason, I didn't throw out that whole dream. And I kept a little bit of it. I would forget about my dream for days, weeks, months, years. I wouldn't remember that I'd want to be a rock star until those pivotal moments in life where you have to make those decisions would come up. And I would think, yeah, I wanted to be a rock star. Okay, still can't dance, still can't sing, musical talent, still not great. But, maybe I will make this decision and maybe we'll see what happens. And it kind of formed me into the life that I have now, where I'm supporting rock stars. So I truly believe that anybody can be, I like to call it the Beyonce or the Taylor Swift of their own lives by just holding those dreams or those goals, never losing sight of them, and being incredibly focused on whatever that is. There's actually a math equation that's thrown around in Hollywood a lot with athletes, and it is 20% plus 20% plus 20% plus 80% doesn't equal 100%. But it means if you focus 20% of your time here and 20% of your time here and 80% of your time here and 20% of your time here, then what are you really achieving? So it's like, let's focus 100% of our efforts on our goal and we will all become quote unquote rock stars. So maybe you want to be the best volunteer in the school for your kids. Great. Like, let's focus our goals on that. And I really truly believe that anybody, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter where you are, can set a goal and achieve it with focus and just self discipline.
I'm curious because when we talk about focus, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that is just so much easier said than done. Like, life comes at us so fast and then we get thrown curveballs. So I'm just curious, do you have any tips on how we can stay focused just in life or fast paced environments?
I was actually just talking to my husband the other night saying, because these last few weeks have been a little challenging for me, like some things have happened and I haven't felt as productive as I can be. And I'm like, I feel like such a fraud because I'm on these podcasts, I'm telling these people to be productive, and here I am still in my pajamas, being like, I'm not doing anything today. So I want to say that that happens to everyone. I know social media and people like me preaching this aren't very quick to say, like, we struggle too, but it's true. We're human. Nobody is perfect all the time. So making sure that you lean into those moments. A lot of people will call them like a wall, like I've hit a brick wall. I like to think of the wall as something that doesn't necessarily stop you forever, but something that you can stop and lean up against and take a rest. The wall's there for a reason. Take a breath, get some clarity so you can find that door to then open it and get to the other side instead of like, I've hit this wall, I can't go on anymore. So that being said, how I like to get out of my unproductive funks is by just doing something, and like action and checking something off the list will always create a little motivation for us, which then creates more and more motivation to keep going. There's no lightning strike moment that's going to hit us. So I also love to do crazy things like throw on really funky music and just scream and dance and just like energize myself and bring joy around so I can be like, okay, now I'm going to send 3 emails today. Oh, look, I did that. That's great. And then you kind of just build up that motivation. So procrastination, getting into those funks happens to all of us. Don't let it stop you forever. Don't get discouraged. Don't go backwards. Just hold on to it for a moment, live in it for a moment, and then do something, action, something to help you get to the next step. And don't wait for that lightning strike moment.
Yeah, so many of us do that. I think we wait for motivation and then we're like, oh, this motivation's not coming. And then it's like you start to get in this rut because it's like you're constantly waiting on this motivation.
Yeah.
And
Or
it's almost,
perfection.
yeah, it's the perfectionism. And it's almost like counterintuitive to think, well, maybe if I just take action, I can overcome the lack of motivation and I can overcome procrastination and I can overcome the sense of perfectionism. And the weird thing is once you do the action, everything else falls into place. You do get that motivation.
Yeah. Like
You
how
know,
many of us, I do this all the time, will write something down on a list that you have already accomplished just so you can check it off and feel good about yourself because it helps you create that motivation.
yeah, it builds confidence.
Yeah, it totally builds confidence. I always say, I know there's lots of controversy, and they said it before about people having to make their beds in the morning. I know a lot of people, productivity people will say, make your bed, to set yourself up for success. I'm a big believer in do whatever works for you. But if making your bed is something that you can say, like, oh, I've checked it off and I've started my day really well, then
Yeah.
do it. Or if it's like, I need to make myself a cup of coffee and check it off and start my day, then do that as well. But yeah, action, just any little action will help you really get out of those funks.
You know, it's funny you say that, and I can see how it probably is controversial, but I think for me, it's one of those things where I started making my bed at a young age, and so it just is natural. Like I get out of bed and I make it. But I notice on the days where I don't make my bed, I feel like something is off. Like it is the signal to my brain that it's kind of the unwind. It's the signal for me to unwind. So for me, it's the bookend of the day
Yeah.
is making up my bed and then unmaking my bed to get in the bed. So I never really thought about that until you just said it because it's so second nature to me. I don't even think about it anymore, but that's actually quite interesting. There's one thing that you said before about the 20, 20, 20, and 80 that I wanted to come back to because I think that is key to where a lot of people get lost in time, like time management, productivity. When I was working in agencies and doing productions, having to switch quickly from one thing to another, from one thing to another, we called it creative tax, right? Like you lose a lot of time in focus with having to switch things quickly. And I know that a lot of people also feel like the opposite of that. It's, well, if I'm working on multiple things at once and I'm multitasking, then I'm being more productive. But I like the fact that you put out the 20, 20, 20, and 80 does not equal 100, right? So I'm wondering if we're talking about multitasking, how would you guide individuals into breaking free from that multitasking mindset, like that madness of it?
It is definitely madness. It's actually interesting. There's no such thing as multitasking. So we always think that we're doing multiple things at one time, but the human brain can only think of one thing at one time. And as you said, you're switching really quickly between multiple things and we're exhausting ourselves. When I do keynote speeches with a larger audience, I always get people to put up their hand and say, who multitasks? And most of the audience says yes. And who's the master of multitasking? Again, most of the audience says yes. And then I ask, who's exhausted? And everybody puts up their hand. And it's because society today, is forcing us to do a million things, what we think is once, but our brain is actually trying to switch back and forth. I'm really bad at watching Netflix and reading my emails at the same time. Or if I need a moment, scrolling on social media, but that's not giving myself a moment. That's actually making me more tired and I usually fall asleep when I'm doing that because I'm not focusing on anything. It's just kind of wasted time.
Yeah.
So, scrolling on social media is fine if you allow yourself a block time to do it and you want to relax and you just want to look at some pretty pictures or whatever it is. That's great. But like focus on that task at hand and not a million things at once. We always try to do a million things at once. So please break the habit of multitasking. You're not doing yourself a favor. You are going backwards and making yourself exhausted. But I know that in a lot of creative industries, as a business owner, I work with celebrities still, and I always set out my day of how I think it's going to go. And probably 95% of the time, it never goes that way at all. Right.
Right.
So it's being okay with that. It's knowing again that like what the goal is for the day, what I want to accomplish. I always know what can be pushed to the next day, like what I absolutely need to get done today, no matter what is nice to have. And I can, push it towards the next day and just being flexible with your time. But if you are being called away from a focus block or, a time where you just want to concentrate on one thing, that's okay. Like, be called away from it, but then make sure that you are focusing on that one thing that you're being called away for and not trying to switch back and forth all at once. Try to complete that new task before moving back to the old task that you had started before.
I'm actually curious because I get this question a lot too. If I say focus on a single task, get that done. And then the question that I get is, well, does it help to time block? Should I time block myself to work on a task and then move on to the next task and then move on to the next task, whether it's finished or not? And I'm curious what your view on that is.
I personally love time blocking. But a lot of people actually get overwhelmed with time blocking because they see all these blocks in their calendar, even if it's like go for a walk, have lunch, walk the dog, do the laundry. Like it's not hard, thoughtful things, but they see it and they think that they're busy from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night when they go to bed. So a lot of people love working through the time blocks and it really helps them. Other people get really overwhelmed by the
Mhm.
time blocks. So I would say it depends on how you work. If you want to try time blocks and you think that you are going to get overwhelmed, make sure that you don't block everything back to back, that you do have white space in your calendar so it doesn't look like you're busy every single moment of the day. And I would try with just like one time block a day. So I want to write a book. So I want to focus for 2 hours every single day. So, like, try that time block before you add more into it. I also get the questions from creatives a lot. You probably do too. Or what if I set out, say, like 1 p.m. for my focus time to write a book or to create this digital product, but I don't feel creative or inspired at that time? And that's very true. Like you can't force yourself to be creative or to have that kind of spark of creativity. So I always tell people to kind of play around with when you feel the most creative. So
Yeah.
maybe every time you're hitting that like wall at 1 p.m. and you're like, this is not working for me. So maybe it's 10 p.m. at night that you feel the most creative or 4 in the morning or whatever it is. And if you still can't find it, then I would say, again, just try. So tell yourself that in that time block, all you want to do is write 6 sentences. If you want to write a book, or stare at the Canvas screen for 6 minutes to create that digital product. And then once you actually force yourself to kind of get in and start doing it, your brain will all of a sudden then click into that creative mode.
I love that. And I love that you said to find when you're most creative. I think I struggled with that for the longest time, trying to be creative during certain set hours or certain amount of work hours. But to be honest, my creativity kicks in at night. Like I'm a bit of a night owl, and that's when like it just flows for me. And so it took me a very long time to just embrace that and lean into it versus trying to change it and time block in a way that works for me versus a time that doesn't, to where it was just
Yeah.
feeling a little bit more stressful. I'm wondering, can you tell us about benefits that you've seen in people who have been able to move beyond the multitasking mindset and actually singular focus?
Yeah, it's actually wild the amount of stuff you can get done in a day when you single focus instead of multitasking. Even after a week, people will come back and be like, oh my God, you're right. Like, I got all of this done and I have all this extra free time. It's just crazy because you're not wasting time switching your brain back and forth all the time. But it does take a lot of self discipline. I also see people will try it for a little bit and then be like, I'm bad at this, I can't do it. But it's a muscle you have to form, it's a habit. It's not just going to happen just like that. You know, we don't go to the gym and run on the treadmill for an hour and be like, oh look, I lost 20 pounds. Like that would be great, I would
Right.
love that, but that's not happening, you know. So neither is forming the habit of not multitasking or time blocking or better time management. It's all things that you have to work on and really stick to it to be able to achieve your goals. I'm a huge believer in setting up goals, one goal or one habit that I want to form every single month to help me achieve my yearly goal. So again, if you want to keep it on the losing weight theme, if you want to lose weight by like 40 pounds by the end of the year, okay, so what are you going to do? In January, we all come out with these like huge aspirations that we're going to not eat any more sugar. We're going to, track our calories. We're going to work out every day. We're going to do all these things, and that lasts for 3 days, and then we don't do any of it, right? But if we focused on one habit, so maybe for January, all we want to do is cut out sugar. Great. So you work on that for the, month, and then you achieve that and then you move on to something else. Maybe it's now walking 10,000 steps a day. Okay, so now we've cut out sugar and we're walking 10,000 steps a day. So breaking them down into the habits that you want to form is also really beneficial for achieving your big goals.
I could not agree more. When I'm working with coaching clients, one of the things that we focus on and when we're setting goals is that 30-day mark, the 60-day mark, 90-day mark, 120-day mark, because the goal trying to get there too quickly is often where people find failure, to be honest. You have to work on things and take little steps to get to the big goal. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was you talk about chaos to control. And I'm wondering if that's one way that you go from a chaotic schedule to a more control life is kind of working in those monthly blocks.
Yeah, definitely. And also taking again away the multitasking. So instead of, and multitasking doesn't necessarily have to be trying to do six things at once. It can also be trying to build six different habits at one time.
Mm,
So taking all of that away and really breaking it down into simplistic steps is how you're going to take the chaos out of your day. When I first started my business and came off the road, I had zero business background at all. I was a dirty roadie. I knew how to put toothbrushes in dishwashers. I had no idea what I was doing. But I remember Googling, like, how do you become a successful business owner? And it told me to hustle, and I didn't like it because I couldn't define hustle. Like, tell me, send 100 cold emails a day, and I'll send 100 cold emails a day. But I didn't like it. It also told me to network and build your network, which I could understand. And that was something that I could go out and do. And I'm still a huge believer in the fact that we're only as powerful as our network. But I feel like the hustle culture and just hustle and just do it and just, do all these things is actually making our lives a lot more chaotic. Again, I'm not a believer in the fact that it's going to be easy, that building a business or being a success or really achieving any big goal is easy. But there's streamlined ways to go about it where you feel empowered, where you feel motivated, where you want to continue, and you are okay with pushing past those kind of hard moments that you feel sometimes on a day to day basis.
yeah. That's interesting that you talk about that too, because sometimes pushing through and powering through is difficult and you need support. And your network could be your support system. It could be a professional network. It could be friends. Like it could be a multitude of different people and levels of support. But one of the things that I find most people need is accountability. And I'm curious of how do you help individuals stay on track to their goals and help them with that accountability coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously something that I'm a huge believer in as well. I would say that the number one mistake that people make is that they lean on their family member or their partner or somebody that is really close to them to hold them accountable, which is good, but I don't think it's going to get you very far unless your partner or whoever you're leaning on has the exact same goal as you do, which sometimes they do, and you can lean on each other, and that's great. But if they don't, then they're going to help you for a little bit, and then they're going to fall off, and not kind of hold you accountable, and then it's going to turn into a thing. So I suggest finding anybody else. So whether it's a coach, whether it is another business owner that's going through the same thing, there's so many communities out there, whether it is somebody that like your neighbor, like that you're close to, like anybody else that's not necessarily like your partner or your mother or your child or something like that is going to help you get a lot farther. I also believe that you can hold yourself accountable too. Once you get up to a certain level, you can start small. And if one of your goals is you want to get up early, so I'm going to get up early and I'm going to do it. And then when you do it, you're like, okay, that's great. Like you can check it off the list. You can create like a habit board. You can do whatever that kind of helps you see the momentum. And then you can, build up. Okay, now that I'm going to hold myself accountable for whatever it is. But you can hold yourself accountable as well. But if you need a little extra motivation, I suggest going to coaches, even a business partner, just really anybody that can actually help you get to that next level.
I just got into like a habit tracker and it's just so fulfilling to watch the momentum that happens as you start to tick off every single day. And it's a level of accomplishment, but then also confidence too. And then it is true once you get to a certain level, you have that own accountability to yourself and you don't want to break the streak. And it's actually very helpful.
Yeah, they always say, and it's true, like the hardest part is just starting.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we hold in our head that like, oh, this is going to take so long, or I don't want to do it. And we put it off and put it off for months. And then we do it and it takes what, like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, why did I put that off for so
Yes.
long? Right. So it's the same with like building habits, it's like just getting started, just again, just doing the thing. That's the hardest step. And then once you start, then you can actually create that motivation to keep going.
Another thing that I love about you and your business is that you are a certified lifestyle manager, which is a very interesting facet of your journey. And can you tell us the role that you feel lifestyle management plays in the overall philosophy of achieving a life we can love?
So the lifestyle manager came into play actually totally in a random way. So when I started my first business, because I had the background of helping these really famous people and because of my network, I started locally managing the lives of really successful people. And there's like actually a course out there where you can become certified to like manage people's lives. But in that aspect, it is very much of a make sure that their bills are paid, make sure that their house is stocked with these things. Like it's very like butler-esque, which is great. But I actually took that and moved it into my other business of helping people achieve their goals and achieve their own ways of living a life that is meaningful. I always say that time management is about filling your days with meaningful moments so that you can live the life that you want to live. So I know that we are adults. I know that we have to do stuff in the day that we don't want to do. I know that we're going to have hard days, weeks, months, years. I get it that things are going to be thrown at us, but we can control our feelings. We can control how we go into the day, and we can control some things that happen in the day to actually help us live a life that we want to. And in my mind, that's all about how you can create the perfect lifestyle for you and to make sure that you are just living a life of joy and happiness and just loving every day as much as you can. Being out on the road and experiencing all these big, massive experiences like backstage at these really important like concerts and events and parties and private jets and all of this. I never actually, it was something I regret. I never actually stopped and took a moment to be like, oh, this is cool. Because I was always thinking of like the next thing I had to do. And I always had to be one step ahead of everybody. And it's now that I look back and I was like, oh yeah, I did those things. That's kind of cool. So, but it's like creating a life that you want to live now is really all about goal setting. We can always think about like, when I'm successful, when I'm a millionaire, but life's too short to think when. It's like all about now. It's all about today and how you're managing your life today.
I could not agree more. The other day, I was looking through some old photos and I was looking back on when I was a producer working in film and television. And I looked back at these photos and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I got to work with this celebrity and this director. But at the time, I really didn't stop to take stock of any of it. And it just was because I was a producer, like you said, I had to be a step ahead of everybody else, make sure that everything was running smoothly for everything else. And I was always thinking about the next thing. And I just wasn't very present. And then I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, if I had those years to do over again, I would be soaking it up like a sponge. So I
Yeah.
completely understand that. The cultivating meaningful moments is such a beautiful concept. I mean, I absolutely love it. And I'm wondering if there are any strategies for contributing to a more fulfilling, purpose-driven existence within those cultivating meaningful moments.
It all comes back to your goals and the big reason why you want to do what you want to do. So, knowing why you want to set your goals, like again, it's great to, I want to be rich, but like, why?
Yeah.
And again, it sounds very selfish, but really living a life that is yours and beautiful to you is like, why do you want to do it? Like maybe it is because you want financial freedom or whatever it is. So just making sure that your why is selfish, is all about you. And that will help you steer your days into creating joy and being in a positive mindset to be able to actually live them out. And again, I'm not naive. I do know that there are days where you're going to wake up in a bad mood and it's going to be hard to find joy. And there's going to be things that come to you that you're just not going to want to deal with it. But it's, how quickly you can get out of it. I actually read somewhere, or maybe I heard in a podcast, that Tony Robbins can turn his negative thoughts or a bad emotion around in 90 seconds. I think that's a bit extreme. Sometimes people need a little bit more time to heal and process
Yeah.
and things like that. But it's how much you can do throughout the day to at least give yourself or find yourself a little bit of joy. And again, I don't want people to think that they have to go out and live like an Instagrammable moment every single part of the day. No, bad things can happen in the day, but I still think that a good day for me is, have I worked as hard as I possibly can towards my goal? So if I think, yep, I've given it my all today, that's check. Have I been able to do one thing for myself today? So have I taken a longer shower or a longer break at lunch or pet my cats a little longer or whatever it is? And it can even be just 5 extra minutes. Have I taken that one time to be me? And then have I been able to spend time with at least one person that I love and care about? So doesn't necessarily have to be family or friends. It can be just one person that's meaningful. And have I been able to reach out to them? Have I been able to say hi to them? It can be something very quick. And if I do all three things in that day, then I've lived and had a really great day. Again, bad things can happen in the day, but if I can still check off those three things, I'm having a really great day. So you don't have to copy mine. You can figure out, what's really good for you and your goals and your mission in your life and your values. And then you can kind of have that checklist in your head when you go to sleep at night. Like, have I actually lived a good day today?
That's awesome. And I've actually never heard it explained in that way. And I think, when people hear purpose, they feel like it's got to be tied to this passion and they have to be in the job of service or giving and things like that. And I love the fact that you really broke it down into what does it mean for you and how you define it, not how anybody else defines it or what anybody else thinks you should be doing or why you should be doing it, but your why. And then having that mental checklist, I think is very, very smart. I know we're at time, which I'm actually super sad about because I could talk to you for so long, but I want to take a minute too to talk about Take It Easy. And I will have all of your links linked in the show note. But would you like to take a minute to talk about Take It Easy?
So I am extremely passionate about helping others achieve their goals, whether you are a new business owner or an experienced entrepreneur. So Take It Easy, again, is a team of executive assistants that help new entrepreneurs and founders and a little more established ones just get more done in their days so they can concentrate more on what brings them the biggest ROI. And then I also have my coaching business where I help anyone be able to set their goals, hold them accountable to their goals, and really set up the right steps to be able to achieve those goals on a day to day basis. I can tell you a little tiny story about why I wanted to start Take It Easy to help other entrepreneurs. So I had come off the road and I was helping still kind of famous people run their day to days. And it was kind of lonely because, again, back then there wasn't a lot of these like communities or anything for the entrepreneur community. And I always thought, am I the only one out there that's on a mortgage broker that's, trying to build a business? They all seem to be mortgage brokers or real estate agents. And when the first co-working space opened, I was the second person to join. I volunteered at the front desk. My entire community and network became all these founders exactly like me. I was so excited that there was actually other people out there. And I started to see at a point that they would get to point of success and they couldn't get over that hump because they didn't have that strategic support behind them. And I realized it because of my background. So that's why I wanted to open up kind of the second version of Take It Easy so we could really help these entrepreneurs and founders who, in my head, are the ones who are really changing the world, get over that little hump of success and get to the other side and then just become the rock stars of their own lives.
I love, love, love that. And I speak for myself, even with core happiness. So I am so thankful that you started a company like that. I think that is what many entrepreneurs need. So, so happy to hear that. Tara, thank you so much for joining us today. I truly, truly enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I wish it could go on. Maybe we'll have to do a part two because I still have so many things I want to talk to you about. But I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
I feel like I could have talked to you for hours as well. I can't believe the time is up. So I will definitely come back for part two. I would absolutely love that. And thanks again for having me.
To our core happiness listeners, what insights did you gain from this episode? What stood out to you the most? We would love to hear from you. You can reach Tara on her website, takeiteasygroup.com, as well as on Instagram and LinkedIn. All of her contact information will be linked in the show notes. I thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to rate it or leave a review. If you have any thoughts or questions, I would love to hear from you. You can email podcast@corehappiness.com. For show notes and additional resources, you can visit www.corehappiness.com. As always, please remember, never let anyone diminish your light. Until next time, sending you my love.